ושמו אחד, לשם ותפארת ולתהילה אדוני, לקראת קלה, בני שבת לקבלה, לך אדוני, לקראת קלה, בני שבת לקבלה. כי מכל הברכה מראש מקדם לשמחה, סוף מעשה במחשבה תחילה, לך אדוני, לקראת קלה, בני שבת לקבלה, לך אדוני, לקראת קלה, בני שבת לקבלה. Adorari, Tivore, the Lord Adonai, the God of Batala, B'nai Shabbat Kabbalah, Adonai, the God of Batala, B'nai Shabbat Kabbalah. The band. Shalom, Ateret Bala, Gam B'Simcha, Uv'Sachala, Toch Emunei, Am Sigula, Go'im Shalom, Go'im Shalom. There is a holiday this week that I want to just talk for a real quick minute about, and that is Yom Yerushalayim, Jerusalem Day. It's a relatively new holiday, and in this holiday we celebrate the reunification of Jerusalem. So here's the story. In 1948, the War of Independence, the Jordanians occupied the old Jewish quarter of Jerusalem, and they cut it off from the rest of Israel. After the fighting was over, a ceasefire was drawn between the two sides, and the line went right through the center of Jerusalem. The western part of Jerusalem was on the Israeli side. The eastern section, which is the oldest part of the city, was in the hands of Jordan. So Israel became a divided city. A barbed wire fence cut through it, guarded by armed soldiers. On the Jewish side, and this is typical, on the Jewish side, the Arabs who lived there were permitted to live, as they always had, and to worship in their mosques. When the Jews are in charge, everybody's free. But on the other side, on the Arab side, the synagogues were burned. The Jews were cut off from their holiest place. Jerusalem's old quarter is where the Temple Mount is, where thousands of years ago the Holy Temple stood. And the Western Wall, which of course we all know, most of us have probably been to, part of the ancient wall that held up the temple, was now in Arab territory. Jews were not able to visit or pray there. 19 years later, in 1967, the Six-Day War, Israel was forced to defend itself against a threat to her survival. And again, Israel fought alone against all the armies of all the Arab nations, but their counterattack was so strong that they captured large portions of Arab territory including the old city of Jerusalem. So the two parts of Jerusalem were united. The city became whole again. So for 19 years, no Jews had access to the wall. And now for almost 60 years, it's been open to us. The anniversary of the Six-Day War is in a couple of weeks, and I'll have some more information on the war at that time. But anyhow, we could continue on page 5. And Faye, I'm going to call on you because it's Barry's fault that he's not here. But we have a special responsive reading for Jerusalem. If you would join us on page 5.
Sure. I was glad when they said to me, "Let us go to the Lord's house."
Now we are
Now
here,
we are here,
standing
inside the gates of
Jerusalem.
Jerusalem,
Jerusalem,
the city
city
restored in beauty and harmony.
This is where the tribes of Israel came to give thanks to the Lord.
Here are the kings of Israel sat to judge
their people.
Pray for the peace of Jerusalem. May those who love you prosper. May there be peace within your walls and safety in your palaces.
For the sake of our relatives and friends, we say to Jerusalem, peace be with you.
For the sake of the house
For
of
the house of Adonai, our God, we pray for your prosperity.
Praise be to God. Let's join our hearts in prayer. O Lord, we long for the day when our feet will stand within the gates of an undivided, peaceful Jerusalem.
Until then,
guide and protect us in your temple. Keep our unity, envelop us in truth, and keep us in peace. Amen.
And let's do the two prayers on page 6 before we go to Jill's presentation. So on page 6, prayer for Israel and the hostages, and let's read together. God, our protector, you blessed
Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, Sarah,
Rebecca, Rachel, and Leah. Bless all Israelis who are fighting a war for survival against brutal adversaries. Vanquish the enemies who rise against us, who seek our extinction
as a nation and as a people.
Make the current peace process a real one. Make it one that can truly bring peace, security, and coexistence
to the region.
We thank you for
the hostages that have already been returned,
and pray that
those still being held return to
their families.
May Israel live
on as a beacon of freedom and humanity, and as a model of
religious freedom in the world.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, atir asurim. Blessed are you, Adonai, our God, who frees the captive.
Amen.
Amen.
And on the next page, our prayer for freedom and liberty everywhere. It started as Ukraine, and now it's even including the United States of America. Our God, lover of humanity, please ensure that the citizens of the United States, Ukraine, and the former Soviet bloc, our NATO allies, and wherever else freedom and liberty are threatened, will be enabled to live the lives they choose in democratic societies without fear of tyrannical interference. Guide us in strengthening democratic institutions and extending them to all.
We as a people have often lived in hostile environments, and we wish the opposite
for every citizen
of our world.
Ensure that the forces of freedom and democracy
prevail across the globe.
Baruch atah
Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam.
Blessed are you, Adonai, our God,
who hears our prayers.
Amen.
And I will reintroduce Jill. Most of you were here a few weeks ago, and just a little bit of her background. She's devoted over 35 years to Jewish education on Long Island. I told her that there are more New Yorkers in our group than there are Californians. So anyhow, at various times she served as a classroom teacher or religious school principal. I probably would have spent time in her office when I was in Hebrew school. As a family ed director, spent the last 6 years focusing on presenting adult education classes for Malloy University's lifelong learning, as well as for various local sisterhoods and libraries. In 2012, Jill began studying with renowned Soferet Neil Yerman, learning the scribal arts and the process of restoring Torah scrolls. She's currently the scribe in residence at Temple Or Elohim, a community reform congregation in Jericho, restoring 4 of their Torahs. She loves spending Shabbat afternoons and holidays with the residents of Atria Tanglewood, which is an assisted living facility. She and her husband, Paul, you can see Paul on the screen, the Vandalay guy, have lived in Freeport, Long Island since 1983. They have 2 children, Emily and Ross, and they are just thrilled to be Oma and Grandpa to their 3-year-old granddaughter, Maisie. I think that's probably the best thing going right now. And
Without question.
I'm going to turn it over to Jill. It's all yours.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much. And thank you to all of you who were here last time. I think we had a good interaction, good questions, good learning. And thank you so much for your very kind words. Rick shared some of the nice emails and texts and things that he got. And welcome to part 2. Here we are. So I had my questions from last time. So before I get into new stuff, I want to do a recap of some of the things that we had some questions on. But very first, I have to say, and I shared this with you, Rick, the next morning after the Zoom that we had, I woke up humming and like singing in my head this tune of Lecha Dodi that you guys do, which I really love. And as it happens, they don't sing that one in temple. Not that I'm a regular temple goer, but when I am, they don't sing it. But every Shabbat, I'm with my seniors at Atria. And as it happens, we do a different tune. And apparently I really missed it because, like I said, it was like the first thing that I was aware of when I was awake on Saturday morning was I was humming that in my head. So thank you so much. That was truly a very unexpected gift.
Jill,
Yes,
Jill,
Mitch,
if,
yes.
if I believe if you go on YouTube and type in Craig Taubman, Taub,
Oh, sure, I know. Yeah.
Lecha Dodi, you might find it.
It came up so unexpectedly. There are so many tunes for Lecha Dodi, for all
Right,
of
but this particular one is a Craig Taubman tune.
Oh,
Thank you. Yeah, no, it just it clearly resonated with me, as they say. So I thank you for that gift, all of you. Okay, so our last time stuff, we talked about what is the oldest Torah. Let's see, I have all my notes are over here. So the oldest Torah, we were talking about the Dead Sea Scrolls. And I think, Rick, somebody said that they're visiting because they tour around. And you guys have them in Los Angeles now?
yeah, they're at the Ronald Reagan Museum in Los Angeles, and
Very nice.
Valley,
Very
actually,
nice.
but yeah, Los Angeles area.
Right.
They're here till September.
And what's interesting about them is when they tour around, and perhaps even depending on how long you have them, you could see them in Los Angeles, you could see them wherever their next place is, where the last place. You're not going to see the same fragments because they are so old and so delicate. They're not all the same ones on display every time because they're sensitive to light, they're sensitive to dust and the elements and being handled. So depending on where you are, when you see them, you may see a different set of them because there's a lot of little fragments and pieces. And what was really cool when they were in New York years ago, and I went to see them, as it happens, one of the pieces that was on display was actually my bat mitzvah Torah portion, a more. And I was so thrilled. I was an adult bat mitzvah. I became bat mitzvah at age 38, just a couple of years late. So it was just really cool to kind of connect and validate what I had done. Because anyway, so those were found in the 1940s, pieces of them between the 1940s and the 1950s in the caves near the Dead Sea. In the northern part, in Qumran, I believe is how you pronounce it. And they date back to the Second Temple time, 516 BCE. We're going to be talking a lot about old. And so sometimes it's referred to as BC. Typically, the Jewish people will call it BCE rather than we're still using the birth of Jesus as the dividing between before and after. We're just not kind of giving him title credit. So we say before the Common Era and then CE, the Common Era, instead of AD. So that's when these fragments go back to. The oldest Torah on record that is that is still something you can see today, is the Bologna Torah, which was discovered in the library at the University of Bologna. How about that? And that dates back to the 12th century. Sometime they're carbon dating it somewhere between 1155 and 1225 in CE. So there's that. As far as the actual oldest references to Torah, you can go back to the Talmud, which is the oral history. The Torah is the written history, it's the written law. And then there's the Talmud, which was written over about 500 or 600 years. And it is reflections of and discussions of pretty much what's in the Torah. And so on a page of Talmud, you'll have conversations that are taking place over hundreds of years, reflecting on, you got Rashi, and then you got the descendants of Rashi over here going, well, this is what he meant. And so they're kind of reflecting page after page. So if you believe traditionally, I think I mentioned this last time, that the Torah, the very first Torah, was actually whispered by God into Moses's ear, and that Moses was the first scribe, and he literally wrote everything down, including the part where God says, and then Moses went up on the mountain, and that's where he died, and the Israelites went into the land of Israel. So, but if you want to jump a little ahead, the sages and scholars will date back to the Persian Empire, which is, again, BCE, around 450 BC to 350 BCE. And that's where the first references of a written Torah are. Some go back to the Hellenistic time, 333 BCE to 164. And just so to give you like a timestamp, that's the Hellenistic era. That's 164. That's the Hanukkah story is taking place during that time. So a lot of history. Again, you're going to get a lot of different references. That's what I came up with. So that's that. Any questions before we move on to other questions? Yes, Steve.
You're curious about language. So, okay, we understand that Hebrew is the language of the priestly class, but Aramaic was the language of the commoners. So, what languages was the Torah actually written? Was it always Hebrew?
Those first Torahs were actually written, not the first Torahs, forgive me, the Dead Sea Scrolls. Thank you, because I had that on the side. I forgot to say that. So the Dead Sea Scrolls are mostly in Hebrew. They are a combination of biblical text and a newspaper and kind of a reflection of what's going on right now back then. So it's mostly the sacred texts are in Hebrew. A little bit is in Aramaic, but for the most part, it's in Hebrew. The secular writings are in Greek. These are from the Dead Sea Scroll, the pieces that they were able to find and restore enough that you can read them, or salvage them so that you can read them. So mostly Hebrew, some Aramaic, but the sacred text is primarily in Hebrew. So if that helps. Does that answer your question, Steve?
Yes, thank you.
Ish. Okay. Any other questions? Okay. Oh, and I also, because I'm looking at you, Mitch and Meredith over there. I listened to our last Zoom at least twice, and then I kind of fast forwarded through some of it a third time. But I missed a really wonderful, brilliant comment, Mitch, that you made, and so I want to make sure that we acknowledge it. We were talking about. Well, but you get it now. So,
we try not to point out when.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
Just kidding.
I guess if we have to.
I feel I have to. And you know what? I'm going to lead the witness, as they would say, and perhaps you might even remember what you said. So we're talking about the Gidin. This is how we sow And I'm going to do a very quick review for a couple of you if you were not here. This is what we sew the pages of the Torah together. And you were asking, somebody had asked, because you're not supposed to mix Torah pieces. If you're going to restore a cow Torah, a calf skin Torah, you're not going to use goat to patch it. And so we were asking, where does the gidin come from? Which animal? And do you have to match that? And do you remember what you said, Mitch?
No, because when I make a brilliant statement, I gotta wait another year.
It's ephemeral and it just kind of floats away. So I was saying how you don't, it's not the gidin is not Torah specific to the animal or not animal specific to the Torah. And you said, oh, it's parv.
Oh.
And it turns out it is, because you can use this.
I remember now. Yeah.
This goes on all of the different animals.
Parv.
So yay.
Okay.
Yeah. And in speaking to Neil and speaking to my guru that I always reference, he did say that some people will mix the cloth from one animal to another. It is his choice, and as it is with many other scribes, that it's just to kind of purify the process, but that is not, you don't have to adhere to that. You can mix them if you so desire, but he doesn't. And so because that was how I learned, I just kind of thought that that's what everybody does. But he said a lot of scribes do, but that's what he does. So that's the whole Gede story. And I think the other thing that we were talking about was the Vav scroll. So I did a lot of research on the Vav scroll, and and of course, when I was talking to him about it, he was like, Jill, we talked about this. And I did remember as soon as he started to talk about it. So I'm going to start by screen sharing. Hold on one sec, because I got to open it first. So to back up, the Vav scroll means that almost every single column will begin with the letter Vav. And I did misspeak in saying that it was pretty much an Ashkenazi tradition, which, again, because most of the scrolls that I was working on or I have worked on fall into that category. So my bad, because it is not originating there. Now let's screen share. Okay, so here is an example. Hopefully you are looking at this.
Yes.
Yes. Okay. So this is, you can see, here's a Vav, Vayomer, here's a Vav, Vaidaber. Each column is going to begin with a Vav.
Why?
I'm sorry, say this?
Oh, I'm sorry. I was just mumbling. I didn't realize I wasn't mute. I always wondered why. That's
so. Thanks for asking. So as it happens, this is from, as you can see, Exodus. Just to give a very quick reference, when you see the numbers written like this, what this means is it's from the book of Exodus, chapter 3, verse 8 through chapter 6, verse 2. When it's written with a number and the dot and the numbers after with the line in the middle, that's how you decipher. That's how you read what the reference is that it's trying to say. And this particular portion is basically when Moses has fled downtown Egypt and he's in the desert, and God calls him back and says, and right over here it says, I will lead you into a land flowing with milk and honey. Where are we? Haaretz, where are we? Eretz Savat Chalav Udvash, right here, the third line down, these first few words. I will bring you to a land flowing with milk and honey. Okay, so the Vav scroll. The origin of that is that it is to mimic the original tabernacle, the original when Moses was given the 10 Commandments, and we're wandering through the desert until we can actually get to Israel, we can get to a place where we can set up and build Beit HaMikdash. We can build a holy temple. But as we are a transient people, we still have this wandering that we're doing and this holy tent that gets erected that is holding the scroll, the pieces of the tabernacle, of the tablets. And so it's in 3 sections, and the very innermost section is the Holy of Holies. It is what is holding. So it's like this ark, this beautiful container, if you will, and the cabinet. And in front of it is a curtain, and there are these support beams. So the Torah is written on pages, and the pages are, each page is called Yiriyah. A page is called a Yiriyah. The curtain that covered the tabernacle is also called a Yiriyah. Sometimes it's referred to as a parochet, but it's a Yiriyah, curtain. That word means curtain. The columns, the way the Torah is written, the word for column is amud, and plural is amudim. That's to mimic these columns that were kind of supporting, these support columns that were holding up the cabinet, the tabernacle, the holy cabinet there. And the curtains, of course, if we have curtains, what do we need? How are they going to stay up? We need curtain hooks, right? Vavim.
Oh.
The letter Vav looks just, wait, I can do it on this one. I'm not giving you guys the middle finger, I promise. But you see how, because I'm double jointed. Okay, so that's what a Vav looks like, right? It's got that thing over and down. Those are to mimic the holding of the curtains in front of the tabernacle. And so this idea of mimicking the Holy of Holies by creating this holy document, it's parallel. And so there you have it.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like we could stop here, right? Gail, you're muted. But I see you with the hands.
The word again for curtains.
Yiriyah. I can spell it in Hebrew. Yiriah. And the plural is yiriyot.
Thank you.
And then the amud or amudim, those are the columns. And vavim are the hooks. Okay. The ink, the other question was different ink recipes. I think, Mitch, this also came from you, the question of, or no, Steve, I think it was you, different recipes. How old is the recipe? What's the deal with that? So that is a biblical recipe. And they also would use, where are my notes here? Pomegranate. So you can actually, instead of the gallnut, you can also use the skins of the pomegranate until they burn, and then they get dark. Excuse me, that's for the carbon coloring. Until they get like black. You're almost going to burn them and then dry them out. And that kind of sticky, sooty mess is going to be instead of the carbon to color it. And also mixing it with candle wax scrapings. But like I say, I got an ink guy, so I don't have to worry about all of that.
She's got a guy.
I got a guy, and here's my inkwell today. So those are, and also you had asked about, someone had asked about copper sulfate. How can you use that if copper can be used to create weapons. So there are base metals that are used for making weapons, and carbon is not. Carbon sulfate is like a byproduct. It's not the actual base metal, and so therefore it can be used as one of the ingredients in the recipe. The final thing, unless anybody has any questions. So I have one more picture I want to share with you. Here we go. So we were talking about, do temples follow my instruction or my suggestion when it's time to take care of their Torahs? And sadly, the answer is no. No, I shouldn't say no, flat out no, but not all the time. And so here is an example of someone who's not listening to me. Okay. So can you guys see this?
Yeah.
Okay. So this is what's called a hygrometer, a digital hygrometer, and it measures the temperature and the humidity. And it's designed, this is digital, this can talk to your phone, so you don't have to keep checking on the ark. Right now, the temperature in the ark is 54 degrees and the humidity is 31%. And that is very, very cold, and that is very, very dry. And we are going to see what happens when things get that cold and dry. The lettering can literally crumble, because just like our skin, we like to be nice and moisturized. However, we don't want to be too hot, because in the summer, their digital hygrometer is reading it is 72 degrees and the humidity is 63%, which is making the hygrometer frown. You can see that. I hope that you can see that it's frowning right there.
Yes.
That is when it gets musty. That's when we can have issues of mold that are starting. It starts to kind of smell. And again, it's just like us. How many of us want to be residing in 63% humidity? Raise your hands, right? No. And so there's obviously the average in between. That's why I said, Rick, if the temperature around you, if you're comfortable, the Torah is going to be comfortable.
That makes sense.
So there you go. So those are all of my from last time notes. Does anybody have any questions or comments before we move forward? Yes, Mitch and Meredith.
Okay, my question is, it's not a question, it's a kind of a statement. I once asked an Orthodox rabbi if God told Moses wrote the first Torah, inscribed the first Torah, whatever.
Yes.
I said,
Took dictation.
how could he do it? And the only answer he gave me was because God helped him. God's the one that said, okay, told him each letter, this, that, and I looked at him and I said, all right. That was it. I walked away. I just said, thank you.
Is there a question for me there, or shall we just discuss?
I mean, have you heard that also?
Well, as I said, the very observant community, my own preference is to, rather than say people are more religious or less religious, so I will not, I don't tend to refer to the ultra-Orthodox community as religious as much as observant. But yes, the very observant community believes creation in 6 days, although defining a day as a period of time as opposed to 24 hours. but believe in literally everything from Bereshit bara Elohim. In the beginning, there was nothing, and then God created and separated the waters, and believe in Noah's Ark and all of it, right up until, as I said, Moses was scribing his own death, and supposedly, and again, the observant community, that he's literally crying over this document as he is writing these words.
Yeah. All right.
Discussion for another day on how we all feel about it, or we can talk now and I can continue my program at another time.
No, continue.
But it's a deep it's a deep discussion to have. Okay.
Yeah.
Any other questions, comments, anything before we move forward? Okay. So I am going to start, let me close these guys, by sharing some background pictures. So Rick, I showed these to you.
Yeah.
Let me see where this is. I know you're here. Okay. So as was mentioned, I did this internship I was very fortunate. I was involved in a program where I had some grant money, and I did this internship with Neil for, I don't know, I guess it was about 6 or 7 months. And at the end of that time, he asked me to be part of his team. That, there are, at the time, this is way pre-COVID. And as I said, there were just a lot of different people coming and going who were available at different times to help work with him. So the way that he knew, and I did not start by writing by any means. I was, as I said, I was setting things up, cleaning things. Eventually, I started sewing. I was doing various other parts of restoration, patching. The two things that I enjoy a lot, and I find that I have a pretty good hand in, are patching and edging. I can kind of see where edging is needed, and I'm going to show you some of that later. But in order to know that I was ready to actually write on the Torah, he gave me a task, which was this. So, can you guys see this?
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay. So this is an 11 by 17 piece of paper. And Neil, first he said, again, we talked about how the letters don't sit on, there's a very fine score line, and the letters don't sit on the line the way that we, back in the day when we had composition paper and we were actually putting a pen in our hand and writing, we write with the letters sitting on the line. But in the Torah, the letters actually hang from that score line above. So he had me draw out these, what would be basically score lines. This is with a light pencil. And then he wrote out the Aleph Bet. He wrote out this top line. And this is called Beit Yosef. This is a very popular Ashkenazi hand. Again, it's not a font because a font comes out of a computer, and this is a hand. So he wrote that, and then I wrote the rest. And so I wrote, but I did it going down, not across. So I did Aleph, 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 Bet, 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 Gimel, Gimel, Gimel. And after I spent the afternoon writing and I brought it to him, he said, okay, you're ready. And that's how I kind of earned my stripes to graduate from not writing to actually scribing. Questions before I take the Aleph Bet down?
No, but that had
I'm sorry. Go ahead, Rick.
No, I was just going to say that had to be one of the great days of your career.
It was very special. And as I shared with you, I used to joke that, because I made a lot of photocopies so that I could share with classes as I was teaching about what it's like for restoration. But the original, I used to joke that the original was hanging on the refrigerator. I do have the original still in my, in my stuff, but I use photocopies, but now I can do it digitally.
Jill, I have a question. About how long did it
Please.
take you to write all the other lines?
It was the afternoon. I mean, because part of it was I was hesitant. Like I would start to write and then I would get one of them. Some of the letters were easier than others, but it was pretty much for the afternoon. It was a couple hours in the afternoon.
But
And then I stopped for a little bit and yeah. I'm sorry?
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. You practiced this for how long before you did this like little test?
Oh gosh. I over time, over the months, that was one of the things that he was having me practice, but not intensively like this. Like it would be one letter. I would just do just like a bunch of olives or a bunch of pays or tsadis. And over time, again, being around the other people, watching them work, watching him work. Some of it was just watching and kind of like imagining in my head, okay, so that's the direction that it goes because it's very intentional, the way you're writing each letter because and honestly this was not with a feather, this was with a marker. Then he had me practicing on with an actual feather and ink on scrap pieces of Torah, scrap pieces of cloth. Because as we talked about last time, the way the ink flows, the way the pen sits in your hand, the feather sits in your hand, it really almost fights being there because it's bowing in one direction, but the chiseled edge is on the other side. So it takes quite a while to get it comfortable in your hand, but it only flows when you're pulling from in one direction. You can't go up, you can only go down. And when you're going across, it's only from left to right. And then you can kind of pull it around a little bit, but you can't go back in that direction. And so it was months and months and months of practicing a little, and then it was doing this all at once.
Jill?
Yes.
I'm looking at the letters and I notice that the tops of most of the letters that have a straight line across it's all one straight line, but on the chet, it's separated. Why?
Okay, so let's find, so the chet is over here, and all of these guys down here, and the chet is actually comprised of two letters. It's either going to be a vav and a zayin and the little TP at the top, or sometimes it's two zayins. That's again a regional choice. And so if you see it and also the way the TP is, I mean, as I said last time, the subtleties of how letters, just little, is it leaning this way or this way? How open is it? That indicates where geographically, is it in Far Eastern Europe? Is it more in Central Europe? Is it a Sephardic scroll? And so, but the chet is always comprised of two letters. But the aleph is actually a yud and an upside down vav. And some would interpret this as also as a vav. And many of the letters, like the daled and the hey, are pretty much the same letter, except in the hey, we're adding the little upside down yud. So there are subtleties and combinations that happen within a lot of the letters.
Thank you.
And the tav also. So the as I'm looking and I'm remembering. So the daled and the hey, and then you come all the way to the end, and the tav all have the same basic structure.
Thank
Just so you know, in this moment, all I can see, like if you guys are raising your hand or something, I can't see any of you. I can only see what's on the screen, the picture. So I apologize, but does anybody have anything else they wanted to talk about with the alphabet? Okay, so we'll stop that. And then we'll get to the very first time that I actually wrote on a Torah.
Yeah.
So just give me a sec. Okay. All right, so this is, oops. All right. So this was the notorious Santa Barbara scroll. Most of the scrolls were, because he had so many scrolls that he was working on, that we used to just refer to them as whatever, for the most part, whatever city they were from. Although he did have the Shanghai scroll, you know, some from out of the country, most of them were local. This happened to be a very, very difficult scroll, and people were kind of tag teaming because the ink was not sitting well on the surface. And so you'd work for a little while, and then you were just like, somebody else has to do this. So someone had done the first 2 lines, and it was my turn to ink this bottom line here. So you can see I started 1, 2, 3, 4. I inked the first 4 words. And here, from here to the end, you can see this is unrestored. This is how broken the letters are. Every place where you see white, I don't know if I can make this picture any bigger. I apologize. I don't see where I can do that. But any place where you see like this white, this light color, that's where the letters have flaked off and I need to re-ink them. But these first 4 words here, I already did. So you can see the difference. And like this is the documentation of the moment of the first time that I actually got to write on the Torah, on a Torah. Questions, or shall I continue?
No, that is so cool.
Yeah.
So did you end up finishing that line?
Oh,
Or-
yeah, I did.
Yeah.
I did, but I can't find I don't have the picture of that. I apologize, but I did. Yeah.
I have a question. When you're restoring one of the letters where the ink is flaked off,
Yes.
do you just ink the part that's missing, or do you remove everything and do the entire letter?
So it's kind of a combination of both. I'm not going to. Later, we'll see that sometimes it's necessary to scrape away if the ink is so cracked and is so fragile that it's just going to keep cracking. But I use, I'm just going to stop sharing so I can see you guys when I'm talking to you. I can come back to that. So we're going to, when there's loose ink, again, we've got the sponge. Remember the pieces of sponge? I don't think I brought any little guys here, but these are the sponges. And I cut them into smaller pieces just so that I can hold them easy in my hand. And then that takes away a lot of the loose pieces of ink. We will also use the high polymer eraser and just go back and forth, getting that, and then brushing it all away with a bristle brush. And that gets it nice and clean. Taking a paper towel even, and when that's all done, and we're going to see in some of the pictures and some of the video that even though it looks clean, you take the paper towel, you rub it over there, and then I show it to the camera and you're like, oh, all of that. And then you do it again and it's like, well, it's still there. Once that's all fully clean, and whatever ink is left on those letters, I'm not going to take any more of it off. I'm going to just, I'm not going to say color over it or paint over it, but I'm inking over in that exact same. So now let me go back and screen share so you can see it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the feather, like the olive is okay. I'm not going to do anything to that olive, but this mem, I'm going to start here and I'm going to go over and down and then go across here. This is such a delicate line on the left. I'm probably not even going to touch it because it's whole and it's so delicate that I would go over it and I would make it, it would end up being a little bit thicker and it loses the delicacy because you can see that a lot of these very thin, delicate lines here and here and here, each of these, I don't want to compromise that by going over that. So as long as it's a whole line, something like that, I'm not going to go over. But going across the thicker parts, yes.
Thank you.
Sure. Again, what I'm doing is using different parts. Here we go. So let me do, there we go. So you can see like it's thicker here, but then if I turn it to the side, it's really thin. So if I had to do that, those delicate lines, I'm going to start by going across with the thick part, and then I'm just going to turn that and come down that way. So I'm going across like this with the thick part, and then I'm turning it on its very thinnest part and pulling the ink down that way. So I'm using all the same feather, but different parts of the feather. Okay, so that's our lettering. Let me just go here. So now I thought we would look at some, let's see, so many choices. Oh, okay. So we were talking about ink on the Torah and mistreating the Torah. And it is just really sad, some of the things that people have done to Torahs that I have seen in my day. And so we're going to start with the Franny scroll, the notorious Franny scroll. Okay, hopefully the sound is going to come. We did this in the test and it did work.
Yep.
So you may have to turn the volume up on your computer. I've got it up as high as it can go. But let me just start by saying, I apologize. The camera's going to kind of be a little shaky because I have my phone in one hand and I have my quill in my other hand, and I'm trying to excuse me, not my quill. I have my scalpel to remove. There is blue ballpoint pen on this Torah, and it is pervasive throughout this Torah. Someone has marked off where the Torah reading begins and ends, where each verse, each sentence begins and ends. And so I'm going to try to hold the camera as steady as possible, but I'm looking like with one eye in my camera and the other eye is on the Torah, and I have a scalpel in my hand. So with that in mind, let's see what happens.
All righty. When this Torah was previously assessed 30 years ago.
I just want to make sure, can you hear that and see that okay?
Yeah.
All right, great.
They had tabbed this because there is blue ink. Oops, blue ink. I can't look in the finder. There we go. Blue ink to mark off where the Torah portions are. And just in case you're not sure, there's a little arrow there that might also help guide you. So let's pull back a little bit. We got to first just clean some of this surface dirt off. That's what we're dealing with. So we're going to rub some of this I'm curious to see if I'm going to be able to scrape this. I'm not sure. I'm going to have to do this a few times. So I'm going to shut the camera off while I use both hands to clean. I'll be right back.
All right, so that was part one. And those were two different paper towels, by the way. So you saw I was, trying to get all of it off, didn't work, did it a second time, and I had to keep doing that. This Torah is coated on both sides, which is not that common, but it does happen. It's to preserve the ink as long as possible. But it makes it much more difficult to clean it, and it makes it much more difficult to ink, because instead of it being what I had shown you last time, where it's like toothy, it's like suede, where it's like a little bit rough, and so it's going to like absorb very nicely the ink. Instead, there's this shiny coating on it, and that's the ink is sitting on top of that. So it becomes a little more challenging when we are actually doing the lettering. At the very, very end, in the third of these three videos, you're going to see that there's like, I had scraped off enough of the ink, but there was also it lost a little bit of the coating, and so you're going to see like there's this little shadowing kind of effect. All right, so that was part one. Let's get to part two. Here we go. All right, and so now we're going to do this. Okay, so let's see what's going to happen next.
All righty, so now that we are nice and clean, I'm going to take, ooh, those look very big when they're close up. I'm going to take one of my scalpels here, and let's see, and I'm going to just start scraping. The lettering, I'm trying to get the camera while I'm also working, always challenging. You know what? This is not going to work. There we go. All right. So basically, I'm scraping the top layer off. There we go. Get a... Nope, not going to get that.
Sorry about the camera work.
Hard to find. There we go. What makes this challenging is normally the Torah is made of layers, like our skin has layers. Normally, I have my left hand, which is holding the phone right now, is, let me zoom out a little bit. There we go. So my left hand is underneath the Torah, and it's pushing it up so that it will expose the fibers a little bit more and kind of open it up so that as I'm scraping, but since I'm holding the camera, I can't. So you get the idea that this is the process that I'm doing. I think I'll do one more picture, and then I'm going to shut this off, use both hands as I did before. But you can already see that this line is a little bit shorter than it used to be. But I really can't get to it the way I want to. So we say lehitraot. I will see you in a few minutes.
All right, so as I was indicating, I've got to have my left hand underneath, pushing it up, and to find that, to make sure that I'm pushing up in the right place, I'm pushing up underneath. I can't see where my hand is, so I push down in the place where I want to start scraping, and then I'm pushing up underneath, and that's going to kind of bend it and open it up so that when I'm scraping, the scalpel can get in between little, like the teeniest, tiniest little places. And so we're going to see now the finished product, the arrow is going to be gone, and all of those other two places where the ink was, those are going to be gone too. Spoiler alert, I did it. Okay. Oops, hold on. Here. Go. Okay. So already, even before the camera starts, you can see there's like a little bit of a shadowing over here. That arrow, that blue arrow is completely gone. And we're going to get close and see the other two places around the
Righty,
letters.
all done. Now the line between the two X, that little arrow, that's completely gone. The pen must have been pretty sharp, so it's pretty deep in the cloth. And so, although I got all the pen done, I'm going to have to find out from Neil if there's a way that I can kind of soften it. Right now it's appearing as a shadow, but it's clean. And what I'm very proud of is in between that line that went through, I did not even have to break the tag. Got it all. Anyway, that's what's going on in the Torah this week. Goodbye.
Okay, so Franny got a cleaning, but this ink was just everywhere in this Torah.
That's amazing. That's really
It's amazing that they did that, you know?
How long did it take you to do that from beginning to end?
Maybe like 10 or 15 minutes on each one of those little blue ink things.
But it was all
Which doesn't sound, I'm sorry?
it was all through the Torah, you said.
I was going to say, doesn't sound bad, 10, 15 minutes here or there, but, you know, page after page, you know, a Torah we discussed is like, it's a little shorter than a half a football field. It's like, you know, 30 feet, 40 feet long. So there's a lot of work. Yes, please, Gail.
It seems like it's tantamount to brain surgery because you don't want to, I mean, you could make a hole in the Torah trying
Yes.
to get that off.
That has happened. I haven't made a hole in the Torah, but I'm trying to see what else I pulled up here. I think I probably left out the one where I did mess up the ink that was already there. I was trying to clean like another thing that was next to it, and I kind of messed up the ink. So then I had to scrape all of that off and then re-ink it. And, you know, I lost, you know, like an hour. So sometimes that happens. And sometimes you smudge, you forget, oh, I did that part, and you smudge it and you let it dry. It happens. But for the most part, it's very intentional. It's very intensive and time consuming. It's time, but you get lost in it.
it's tedious, very tedious.
So you came across ink in the Torah, you know, pen.
Yes.
Have you ever come across whiteout? Where maybe they marked it and then tried to cover it up with whiteout?
I haven't come across whiteout in that instance, but there have definitely been times where I don't know what it is. There's a lot of unidentified schmutz. So I can't tell you what it was or how it got there. My job is basically just to get rid of it,
Right,
in the best way possible. But it is astounding what people will do to a Torah, and thinking that it's okay, or thinking that they're helping it. You know, if, again, I shared with you that like sometimes there's like a little tear, so they'll put tape on it. And then when that glue fades, They'll put another piece of tape on top of that and on top of that. And after decades, it just builds up. And then it, so don't do that. Okay. So next I want to talk about sewing. Oh, let's do sewing. Yeah. So this is nice. So as I shared with you, Neil, I think it was maybe in like 2016 or so, 2015, 16, something like that. He was commissioned to write a brand new Torah. There was a temple, I don't know, they were having like a round anniversary, and people within the temple made donations, and they commissioned him to write a Torah. Which takes about a year. It took him, I think, even a little bit more than a year, because that's not the only one that he was working on. And I had the great honor of sewing together the first 7 Yeriot that he wrote. So I wanted to share some pictures from that process. And I'm hoping that these were the ones where I was able to go one to the next to the next. So let's see. Okay, so this. Okay. Are we seeing the picture?
Yes.
Yes.
Good. Okay. So you can see that this, first of all, so beautiful. His hand is just gorgeous. And it's completely straight, but the pages are folded at the very edge and kind of locked together in different ways. Sometimes they overlap, like the bottom one will be flat and the top one will be creased. Sometimes they're both creased together. There are different styles, again, regionally. So that was just the plain edge. And so what I had to do, so we're going to keep this edge plain, but this one needs to be creased. It needs to have like a little seam, almost a little hem. And so I folded it over using our bone folder. Where's my bone folder? Ah, all right, I'll get that in a minute. And with wax paper and just going over it, I start by using a ruler, like a yardstick, a metal yardstick, that's going to keep me giving a straight line. And I kind of score it and then fold it over and then just keep going back and forth forever with a piece of wax paper on top of it to make that crease. And so here is the creased, there's a flat one on the bottom and then the creased one on the top. And here are my tools. I've got the guidin, I've got an awl and a little hammer, and I've got these. So I took a plain piece of paper and measured out every, I don't know, what is it? Like every 4 inches or so is going to be a little hole, so that that's going to be on both sides, by the way. That's going to be on this side and on this side. There's my bone folder right there. And so that's going to, the holes are going to line up, and this way I will know where I'm supposed to be sewing. And there you have it. And so now I've got both of them, and you can, I wish I could make this bigger. I'm so sorry. I don't know how to make it bigger, but so I'll start at the top here. Here's a hole, a hole, a hole, hole. You can see them. And the other page is also folded. And so those 2 folds are going to kind of butt up against each other. And then I'm going to just sew them together. And there they are. So now they're completely flat. And by the way, this is a Vav scroll. Vav, Vav,
Yeah.
Vav.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
There you go.
Man, everything lines up so perfectly.
Yeah.
Wow.
And so these are the first 7 pages 7 Yeriot, and you can see they're all flat. The two seams are against each other. And his beautiful, beautiful hand that has written these Yeriot.
So you're stitching hole to hole. You're not stitching the length of the page.
Correct. So like if these are the two Yeriot, let's go this way. So I'm going to take that bone folder and make a score, like maybe a 1/2 inch in. And so that's going to go like this. Hold on. So that's going to go like this. Right?
Mm-hmm.
This particular style is going to do this. And then this one I'm going to do like this. And then they're going to lock into each other. So now they're both together. This particular style that I was doing on his, they're like this. So they're going to go like this, right? They're kind of hugging up against each other. And the holes line up. So I'm going to stitch all the way underneath. You don't see in this particular seam, you don't see it. I'll show you another style where you do. But in this one, so I'm sewing underneath here. And so what happens is I go in through here, come out the top. I'm going to go in through here, and then I'm going to make like a loop. It's a lock stitch. So I'm going to actually start by going in and out of the same hole once around. So it makes like a big circle, and that's a lock stitch because that's at the very end. That's going to be the strongest. So I'm going in and out and in and out. And then I come through here. I come back up. I come up the top, go down, and then it's like serpentine. It's like going like that. And then when I get to the very end, it's the same thing. I'm not sewing all the way around. I'm stopping maybe like 1/4 of an inch or 1/8 of an inch to the end. But again, I'm coming through the top, down through, and then back up. So I'm making like a big circle, and that lock stitch is gonna make it real tight.
So
and so then, I'm sorry?
The back of the page has that folded part. You see it from the back?
In this particular style, it's folded.
Oh.
There are some where it's going to be like this, where they're going to go like that.
They lock.
And then it's going to be flat down like this. In like the knot, when I'm going to knot it, let me go back to Neil's thing for a sec. So after I finish the whole thing and I do my lock stitch at the bottom, I'm knotting it underneath. So you do not see the knot at all on the page. And so then it goes open like this. Well, of course, mine is not sewn, so it's coming apart. But it does lay, you saw, it lays flat once it's all done. It's going to go azoy like that. Okay. Now a check scroll. The check scroll is gorgeous. I only like the last like 4 years or 5 years, I learned how to do a check stitch. So these, again, you still have those, you still have those two like that, right?
Yes.
And they're going to go up against each other like this. And then the stitching is actually in the front. So, come on. So the stitching goes, it's like starts in the back here, comes through, and then so it's like a loop, a loop, a loop, a loop. And you only see like it's just like a thing across. It's almost like stitches, like when you get stitches, right? Like the staple stitches that you see in like major surgery. That's what it looks like. It's just like this little hook, boom, boom, boom. They're so beautiful. It's really unusual. It's really beautiful. So there's sewing. Questions? Okay, so let us move on. We did Franny. We did Neil. Okay. Close the whole thing. How about some edging? Let's do edging. So let me get this. All right. So for me, this is probably the last thing I do. Generally, the first thing I will do is clean, and then I will look for first I'm doing surface cleaning. And again, this is like through the whole Torah. I don't do it like one page at a time or a book. Do the entire Torah, just cleaning it with the sponges and the erasers and just getting all the surface dirt off. And then the next thing is the scraping. Things like what we saw with Franny, with the ink. Maybe some ink has smudged together. So things like that. It still requires, as we saw, a little paper towel, a little extra cleaning, get all of that. Then I will do any kind of tears, whether it's in the seams or in the, if there's like a patch that needs to be made or a patch that needs to be repatched, anything like that. Then I will do lettering. And then the very last thing that I'll do is edging. And so the very top and the very bottom of the Torah, a lot of times your eye doesn't even really see that it's not fully straight at the bottom, and it should be. It should be clean, and especially where where the two pages are together, sometimes it's like that. It's just over time. Sometimes it's the way it was originally sewn, but I have a pretty good eye for seeing that it's not completely straight, and it needs to be. So for that, we get out our scalpel and again, so this is a ruler, and I'm going to take the ruler, and from here you can see that there's just like a little tiny little bit that's showing, but this is where from the 4-inch mark to like the 22-inch mark, there's all of this that just needs to clean up. It needs to be straight. So I'm going to take my number 11, and I'm just going to slowly, inch by inch, as they say, cut through until that's gone. And what happened with this Torah was where the two pages were sewn, there was a little extra. And so I had to kind of get all those little extra pieces. But now you can see there's one tiny little extra little piece, and I'm just going to take a piece of sandpaper and just kind of straighten that out. But this is completely straight now. For those of you who were really paying attention, maybe you noticed that I was not wearing a Band-Aid when I started.
Yes.
And I was wearing a Band-Aid very shortly after I started. So
Holy
we're going to
wow.
go back. We're going to go back to the beginning again. Here we are, no Band-Aid, and me not fully paying attention. And so by picture number 2, I am now wearing a Band-Aid. We do not want blood on the Torah because that is very difficult to get out. It wasn't bad. It was just like a little, just like a little thing, and it's almost all healed now. But that was my where my number 11 scalpel met my finger. It happens.
I'll bet.
Yeah. What are you gonna do? So I kind of did this entire presentation, sort of backwards because I had intended to start with intention. And I'm looking at the time. Are you guys okay? Do I have time to do like one more element of this?
Yeah.
Okay, good. Okay. Because I got I didn't do these guys. Okay, you know what? Let me do this real fast and then I will talk about intention. Okay. So this is an example of, where did this go? Here we go. Okay. Okay. So this is an example of what happens when it is too dry in the arc. And you can see that all of this graining and flaking, these letters are literally just peeling off. So and this is the word that we are talking about, b'chokhmah, right here. And so the first thing I have to do is get rid of all of this schmutz. So I take my sponge, again, a dry sponge, there's no water involved, but this sponge pulls away. And so now you can see I have a nice clean surface to work on here. I am going to, even though this last letter has no issues, because all of the other letters were compromised, I will re-ink the entire word. And so that's what it looks like when it's re-inked.
Oh, wow.
That's perfect. Perfect.
And so this is an example where the chet is two Zions. Remember how I said sometimes it can be a Zion and a Vav? Here's an example. This hand is two Zions with the little TP at the top.
It's up to the scribe which one it's going to be.
Well, it's up to the scribe because, again, regionally, that's how the scribe learned it from his father and his grandfather and his uncles. Again, that's the way that they were doing it in that region. And then eventually, maybe he made his way east, west, north, someplace else, and maybe he's restoring the way that it is back in this new region, but maybe he's bringing a little bit of his own little flair to it. And so that's how things are going to kind of change. But over time, because we had dispersed from, from one place where one Torah was being written, and then we're going all over the world, we're learning from whatever is being created, was created originally, and that's how it's always made, which is, again, that shin we were talking about. It's very easy to use the shin as a marker of what shape is it? Is it very round? This one is very pointed at the bottom. And not only is it pointed, but it's not shaded like clean across the bottom. It's like very thick here, and then it kind of comes up on the right-hand side. And so that's done.
I'm sorry. Are there any regions where that chet is solid? Or
no.
Okay.
It's always but it's either the Zion and the Vav or the two Zions. I will say that in some cases it's much closer together, and instead of being like a triangle teepee, it's almost like an upside down U, and that's filled in, so it's like a little semicircle at the top instead of that very narrow, very thin lines that make a teepee. It's like a colored in, so it gives almost the appearance of being one smooth line, but no, it's not like the letter hey where it's completely across, so here's a hey over here.
Tomorrow I'm gonna have to get my Torah or our Torah out and take a close look at it. I never knew that.
And take some pictures and send them to me.
No,
I won't be able to tell you, but Neil will absolutely be able to tell you. And there's my inkwell, and there's my feather. And so that was how we restored that. And so, so I wanted to talk about intention and how because you guys had asked about sort of my process and what does that look like? And for different types of restoration, I'm going to be doing different things. And part of it is very personal and very individual. But there are, as I'm going to share with you, there are certain things that have to be done ritually. So it begins with me, as I said, I develop a relationship with the Torah when I'm working on one scroll for a very long time. I get to know not just the shapes of the letters, but the issues that it has, whether it's like that shiny, like the Santa Barbara Torah, that it just, it's, or, wow, this is a really easy cloth and it just takes the ink, but there are certain parts of it. So I go in knowing whether it's ink or sewing or whatever it is that I'm doing, patching, that I go in thinking about what it is that I'm going to be repairing that day. Or sometimes I have no idea. Like I'm just starting with this Torah, and what am I going to come up against? I've done an assessment, but what's it going to be like? And so there's just sort of getting into the mindset of connecting with this Torah itself. But then there's also me and like, what am I thinking about? And literally, what am I wearing? So the first thing when I'm restoring is, this is my, oops, it's backwards. So this is my apron. And not everybody has one, but I chose to get this off Amazon, and I wrote on it. Let me see. There we go. So it says Torat Emet, Torah of truth. And so I have a lot of little, what's it called?
Tchotchkes.
No, from Paul, what is that called? From tchotchkes?
Pieces of flair.
Flair, yes.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Wait, what movie was that? Office Space?
Office Space.
Office Space.
From Office Space. So this is my flair.
Doing your Jennifer Aniston imitation.
Oh, I should be said. No, I'm not Jennifer Aniston. All right. So this is a Bendel bracelet that I got at the wall from one of my visits to Israel. There are people at the wall who you give them tzedakah and you get a little Bendel. This heart was from one of the presentations from one of the temples when the Torah had gone back to the temple, and they had this whole ceremony and everything. So this was welcoming. And what does it say? You make, I can't read this. I'm sorry. Oh, you make a difference. You make a difference. And so everyone who had been involved in the Torah project got one of these pins that says you make a difference. I'm sorry, it's a terrible font. This is a font. It's not a hand, and you can't even read it, but it does say you make a difference. Or I guess if I had better readers on. So there's that. This is a Torah pin that my colleagues gave me. I was part of the Principals Council, and so we all took turns being president. And so when I stepped down from being president, they gave me this pin. And I love it. And so it's part of my connectivity to my colleagues and to the work that I did in education. And this is from Robert Kraft's movement to try to stamp out anti-Semitism. And so, in fact, I also have one on here as well. So I put my smock on, and because doing Torah work is kind of dirty and messy, and you saw, if you were paying attention, like in the edging, like the shirt that I was wearing, I don't wear good clothes because, it gets dirty, especially if I'm cleaning, there's dust flying around and everything. So, so I have my smock on here, and that begins part of my intention and my getting into the mindset. Maybe I'm thinking about things on the news. I mean, there's always, was it yesterday or 2 days ago yesterday, where those two Jewish people who were working at the embassy trying to make a difference. They were at a conference on trying how to fight anti-Semitism, bringing harmony, and they were just assassinated. They were about to be engaged. They were going to go next week. He bought her a ring. They were going to go to Jerusalem and get engaged. I mean, it's just horrible. Every day there's just horrible stuff. This is about healing. This is about fixing things. And this is whether it's one letter or cleaning, but sometimes it's also about joy. Rick, when you were giving my intro and talking about Maisie, and sometimes it's about bringing joy, the joy that I have in my life, into the work that I'm doing. So it really is, it's quite vast. Very often it's if there's somebody that we know personally or from the temple community who is in need of healing. I'm going to share with you a video in a minute. A very dear member of the Jewish educational community passed away. She was a teacher for like 50, 60 years. I mean, the amount of students that she helped learn how to read and how to learn the values. She was extraordinary. And so when she passed away, I did some restoration. I happened to be doing restoration, and I made these videos of before and after this process that I was fixing something. And I sent it to the family to let them know that, her son is a rabbi. And so it was meaningful to them to know that some healing was being done in her name, but that she was now kind of embedded into this Torah that will go on to be read year after year. And so she's kind of connected to that. So there's all different kinds of things that go into it, and there are prayers that I say, and, praying for a good, steady hand, and that I'll get it right. And then the final thing has to do with lettering. So everything that I mentioned, except for lettering, is very personal, and there's no real rules around it. But when it comes to lettering, there's a very specific ritual that happens. So there's a couple of these. There's a lot of these here. All right. So this, as you can see, actually, let me start with this one. Right side up. Okay. So as you can see, it's just the same thing over and over again. And it's crossed out, crossed out, crossed out, crossed out, right? So what's happening here is the name Amalek. And you can't really see it because it's crossed out. So who was Amalek, and why am I writing his name and then crossing it out? Does anybody know? Otherwise,
Yeah, Amalek was one of the enemies of the Jewish people in the desert.
Yes.
He brought his nation to war against the Israelites.
So his story, absolutely. So his story takes place just after we have crossed the Red Sea, the Sea of Reeds, and we are 600,000 people, animals. It's hot, it's smelly, it's chaos, and Moses is trying to kind of herd cats. He's trying to get tribe by tribe. Let's just get moving. And in all of this chaos, and so who's up at the front? So there's this big long caravan that finally gets assembled, and off we go. So who's up at the front? Bueller. Who's up at the front? The guy who knows where we're going, right? Moses. Yeah, he's got the GPS. Right. He knows where we're going. Otherwise, we're just walking in a circle. So, and tribe by tribe, and eventually, so who's at the back? Who's always think of the school trips. Who's always at the back?
The
stragglers, right?
But behind him are the Egyptians coming after them.
Well, no, because the Sea of Reeds.
They're already in the water.
We don't have to worry about them.
Right.
But who's at the very, very end of this very long caravan
The
stragglers, the very old, the very young, those who are mentally and physically disabled in some way, who are not strong, who are not 100%. They are the most vulnerable. As this whole thing is taking place, Amalek and his followers, his warriors, the Amalekites, he's watching all of this. Who are these people? And how can I overtake them before they overtake me? And so what he decides is, rather than going to where the soldiers are or where the leaders are, he attacks from the rear. So by the time word gets up to anybody who can help, and then they come and try and rescue, and word keeps going up towards the front, and then we get some soldiers, and now we get some more protection. And by the time help of any substance is able to arrive, so much damage has been done, so much loss has been suffered, so many lives are lost. And also, we are just so scared anyway. We have no idea what's going on. We just barely made it across the sea before, as you said, before the Egyptians got us, right? We have no idea what's in store for us. We're in the middle of the desert. It's chaos. And now we are shaken to our core because we have been attacked. And so because of this, at the very end of the Torah portion, it's just like 3 or 4 verses. And it says, God says, never forget the Amalekites. Never forget the name Amalek. I will blot him out from under the sun, from under the heavens. He will be nothing. You can't destroy us anymore, but never forget who he is. Always repeat his name, but never forget who he is. And yet he is nothing to us. So before I can write on a Torah, even restoring one letter, never mind if I were writing an original scroll, I write Amalek's name beautifully, just like it is in the Torah, with the little crowns on it, in a Torah hand, different Torah hands, but always beautifully. But then repeating those lines, I will blot out his name from under the heavens so that he can no longer destroy us.
It almost sounds like a Haman kind of a thing.
Well, actually, funny you should say that, but if you trace Haman's family tree,
It comes
he
from
is
the
descended
Amalekites.
from the tribe of the Amaleks.
Yes.
From the Amalekites.
Yes.
So yeah. And those who say the modern day Amalek, October 7, and all the times in between, right? I did want to share with you that so as I said, there are different hands, Torah hands, that I can write in. And there was this one day when I was feeling a little defiant, and I did not want Amalek to kind of tell me what to do, because I just went into it that day where I don't know what was in my head, but I was like, no, I'm not going to let you tell me what to do. So I wrote his name, not in a Torah font or hand, but just in a beautiful serif circles. And then I wrote, and I discovered how very hard it is to write in English, going the other way, using the Torah pen, using the feather. But I wrote, hold on, I wrote, my beautiful imprisoned enemy can never harm me. What I did was, instead of blotting him out, I imprisoned him. I drew a circle around him so he can't get out. But I left him there. And so that was just kind of my moment. The other thing that I will share with you is the only one that is not crossed out on here, other than some letters where I was just practicing. On October 7, I was doing work. And when I heard what was going on in Israel, I wrote Hamas right here. I wrote Hamas. I actually misspelled it. It was like I didn't even want to learn the right way to spell it. It was just it was a visceral moment for me. And I didn't cross it out because I didn't want to ever lose that moment that I was having. And so it just, again, it was just this moment where it was too much. It was not enough to write Amalek for me on that day. So that's what writing is, and process. And before I share, does anybody have questions or anything before I share this one last video?
I want to say thank you for sharing it, because that's one thing we never discussed.
Yeah.
Process of yours. So that's fascinating.
I have a question. Is it permissible? Probably not, but let me ask, for a non-Jew to be a scribe?
No.
Okay.
In fact, when I was so one of where I am the scribe in residence, the first year and a half, I was basically in the lobby. And so anybody who was coming by was, oh, what are you doing? What's going on? And I was the way that where I was stationed. And again, it was only because that was the best place for light. As I shared last time, nothing compares to daylight, but I need good light. And if it's artificial light, it's got to be like the white light, not the yellow light. And I got to be able to see. So the best lighting is in the lobby because there's a lot of windows there. And everybody comes in. If they're going to the office, they don't even go to the lobby. They're like that on the other side. But when they're coming to the catering hall, that was right behind me. And the sanctuary was on the other side. So that was the traffic that was coming. And a lot of times people would come and just, ask what's going on. Can I take a selfie? Can I do this? And if there was something where they were sharing, maybe they were going into the sanctuary to just have like a quiet moment of prayer because something was going on. And very often I would ask them, may I write something in memory of someone for you, or as a healing thing for you? And, do you want to hold on to my arm? But a non-Jew is not even really supposed to carry the Torah. It's very controversial in certain synagogues when it's an interfaith family and it's time for the bar mitzvah, who's going to get to carry the Torah. And that blessing, Baruch Hu et Adonai Hamvorach, right before you read the Torah, that a non-Jew is not supposed to chant that, because those words are saying, thank you, God, for giving us the Torah. That's what that says. And so to have a non-Jew say that, or to have a non-Jew carrying this Torah, that's an honor to be able to carry the Torah. So to be able to write on the Torah, sorry.
That leads to another question. When, like you said, holding the Torah, if you were to drop it, I know you have to fast for so many days. Now you are trying to repair it, but if something goes wrong and you rip a page or something, do you have to do something because now
I gotta fix
a page in the Torah?
I gotta fix it.
Just fix it. Though there's no fasting or something else.
No, dropping the Torah and even dropping the Torah is not. It's not it depends on what kind of a drop it is, because the whole thing is, and again, this goes to like the Reform movement versus the more observant, the Orthodox community. So in the Reform movement, I have heard stories where it's not so much because again, the Torah is, here we go. So the Torah is on those Atzei Chaim, those dowels, right? So if the Torah falls, but only the Atzei Chaim land on it, and the cloth itself, where the words are, do not land on the ground, I have heard stories that's okay. No fasting is required. But if you went into an Orthodox community, I believe you're fasting for a year, but it's not one person who is fasting for a year, obviously. It's from sun up to sundown, and different people in the community, everybody kind of takes a turn, so that it's a communal effort. And it's a communal part of repentance, and it's a communal part of healing. There you go. But yeah, I mean, if I am scraping, like we said before, and I scrape too far and I make a hole in it, I'm going to put a patch in it. When I smudge those letters, wait till they dry, scrape it off. And actually, the scraping that I'm going to share with you is very similar to what I did. I'm not responsible for what I'm going to show you. Fixing it, yes, but I did not cause the smudges that we're going to see. Any other questions? Because I do want to share this one last healing video with you. If I can find it. Here we go. Okay. Okay, so hopefully we see this, yes?
Yes.
Okay, so I'm going to play this video. I'm just going to play it and then stop it to make sure you can hear it.
Hey, Mickey and family.
Yes.
Okay. So Mickey is the son of this woman, Erith. He's the one who is now a rabbi. And she was this amazing teacher that was just such a gift to the Long Island community. And she passed away, and this is what I shared with them.
The healing that I'm doing by repairing the Torah, I'm thinking of you and your family, the healing that will be coming, that lies ahead. I'm thinking of Erith and all of the amazing work that she did to heal the educational souls, all those kids who said, I'll never learn anything, and she made them learn, she made them know that they could learn and do, and have paid it forward over the years. So the work that I'm doing is in her name and in her memory. You can see that we've got an ink smudge over here in Yosef's name, and particularly, this is a real visible one, between Al Kol. So I need to scrape off this ink. I'm going to start now on my own, but I'm going to need my other hand because I need to kind of push the Torah up with my left hand so that I can release the fibers to let me really get inside here. But for now, I want to show you a little bit, and then I'll send you another video that will be the finished product. This is what we do. Yeah, I really need my other hand. So I'm going to stop and I will show you when I'm done. But this whole time, I'm thinking of you guys, sending love and healing, and thinking of Erith and all the beautiful work that she's done over the years.
So that's one. Let me see if I can just go straight to the, oh, no, I can't. I got to stop so I can open up the other one. Hold on. Oops.
And so here we are. Yosef, all cleaned up nicely. Al Kol, this is all now done, clean, ready. And so may the blessing of Torah, may the blessing of health, and above all, the blessing of having Erith in our lives, may she always be with us, as her teaching will always be with all of her students and her colleagues. Take care. Bye.
So
That must
that's
mean
the
so much.
Very
to you.
beautiful. Very moving.
Wonderful.
Yes.
Wonderful.
Mm-hmm.
So that's pretty much what I was going to share with you today.
I just don't have words enough to thank you for all that you've brought to us. Really. And I know that there are a lot of people that weren't able to make it that are going to watch the video and have watched the first video, and you've enriched our community beyond. When we started talking about this a couple of months ago, and I think I said this last time, I had some pretty high expectations, and you far exceeded all of them. So
Wow. Thank you. That's very nice. Thank you. And it's truly my pleasure. And if you have any other questions or stuff you want to talk about, I'm here.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jill. We
Thank you.
appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
Yeah,
Thank you and Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat shalom.
But I am going to step away like I did last time because
okay.
I haven't eaten dinner and it's pretty much midnight.
Yeah. Shabbat
I
shalom.
can never eat before a show, so.
You and Paul.
Yes, and
Come and visit again.
Thank you. I will. I really enjoyed being here, so thank you.
You're welcome anytime,
Wonderful.
believe me.
Thank you
If
so
you have
much.
more you want to talk about, we are always here for you.
All right, we'll talk.
Okay, we will. And I'll get some
Okay.
pictures of our Torah to you soon.
Yeah, that'd be great. Thank you.
All right.
All right. Well, good night, guys.
Shabbat
Night.
shalom.
Very
Shabbat
much.
shalom.
It was
Shalom.
wonderful.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Bye.